Hello, everybody. In fact, I'll do the normal intro actually, rather than do that one. So, hope you're all well. Half term next week, so everyone looking forward to that. I still think I'll do a session next week, looking at the weather. I don't know, I might change it to 10 a.m. No, I'll keep it the same. Maybe during the summer holidays, we'll move things to 10 in the morning. Might want to go to the beach or do something more interesting. So, today we're going to have a look, as I said last week, at create your own adventure using some HTML, JavaScript, and things like that. Um, so we're going to really investigate how to do a create your own adventure or a game using code for the internet. I'm going to have a look at what that looks like in Python, and maybe next week as well, because it's a bit of a holiday break. I was hoping to have it today actually, but I'm getting a piece of kit which I'll show you now on the cam and screen. There we go. Looking to get a bit of kit called the old Arduino Ulvik. It's a new robotic car that, like I said, just got held up with customs today. I was hoping to have it. And it's going to be a fun codable robot that I want to assess to see if it's good for schools or not. Love the microbit. Talked about that before. There's a bit of kit, microbit with some wheels and some electronics. Excellent thing. But this has extra bit of power on it, able to code it over the internet, upload it via the internet, much more interesting sensors. And it has the ability to do line following, color following, adding with extra add-ons, vision sensing, artificial intelligence sensing, lots of different interesting parts, I think. So going to be super interested to see what that looks like when it comes through today. So yeah, let's see how we go. Now, I'm not quite seeing my chat at the moment, so I'm just going to have a quick look. I did see something come through on the chat there, chat rate 2, but I'm not seeing it on this side, so I'm just going to refresh that in a moment. While I'm doing that, uh, there's quite a lot of actual code today. So there's areas where you can copy and paste this if you're doing this along at home, or if you're doing this in your own time and pausing and doing it again. So go to digital.edu.je as normal while I just go through and see if I can refresh the chat there to try and keep up to date with everybody. There we go. That's why I probably needed to do it. It's just going to log me in and going to grab that bit of code there. Let me just check that it's here. That's the one. So I'm just going to have to open up another page to bring in some passwords there. So as we're having a look at this now, go to this page and it will take you to Think as a Coder here. Now, I've created a whole new section for this because this is going to take quite a bit of work and quite a bit of code. So at the top of the page, there is a new page called Adventure. So click on that when you're in to have a look at it. And we shall see when I click in there some different things, a Python version and a space adventure. We're going to get to the space adventure today, but I wanted to show you what the differences would look like between the Python version of this game and what the actual web code and HTML and JavaScript and everything else is going to look like. So have a little look around. We're not going to do the Python one. I just want to show us because we've been using Python. So if you click on part 1, it's got the bad way of doing a Python game, just using, as we've said, the stuff that we've got here. And what we've got here is a print. You are trying to find your way through a maze. There's a pot of gold somewhere. I've done each of these on a separate line coming in. So have a little look at that. And you can say start equals input. Do you want to start the maze? So I've got, as we looked at last week, an input here. So I'm going to say, yes, I want to play the game. Welcome to the maze. You enter the maze. And I've gone through this using some prints and some if you answer one way or the other, it happens. So when we come to now, you can go left or right, make your choice here. I can do right and I can go on, but this isn't great because I've got these what we call nested tables that go one after another, and it's not the greatest way of doing it. What I should really have done, and you can go back to that digital.edu.je page and look at part 2, is I should have looked at using functions or definitions here and I'd done one room at a time. So I'd have done room one, you can go left or right, and there's choices to those, but they take you to other rooms. So the answer here is room two, and then that's room two. And you can start making flow charts of different directions and go to different rooms via other rooms, making it much more interesting going forward. So yeah, having a look at that, I would say it's good, and we can get more and more complex and have a little play around and have an adventure yourself. Go right the way to my extension challenge for the Python, where we have this import random, so we can have random choices. We're going to talk about that more today in the web version of what I'm doing. But we're also going to import time to have waiting. So if I refresh this page again, you'll see even in the story here, it says we've got a pot of gold, ... and then it has, this is a dangerous, do you want to continue? Yes. And then I have welcome to the maze. Then I have this kind of pause, this user experience to make my game a little bit more interesting. So we can use different ideas and different functions just using one Python file and lots of ways. But this text-based example that I'm seeing on the right-hand side here isn't, I don't think, the greatest way of attacking this kind of problem, because what I want to have a look at, I just need to grab a separate page in here to have a look at that, is what I want to have a look at is, can we make this more into a web-based game so that it's more interesting? And the answer is yes. So while you might like Python, feel free after this session to go through and see what that Python game kind of looks like and play around with the variables and things like that. But what we're going to have a look at today is the code guide and the live code for a HTML, JavaScript, and cascading style sheet kind of game. So we're going to have a little look at that now. I just needed to grab a password here on the side, just so that I can see what people are saying. For some reason, it just logged me out there. So I'm just logging back in just to grab the chat facilities on the side. So let's have a little look. So if you click the code guide here, it will open up a new page. And this is all the code that we're going to be dealing with today. See, there we go. That's what I couldn't see. Hello, Go Bananas on your phone today. That's not a problem. And what we're going to have a little look at here is this code. I'm going to zoom in, and we're going to create our own space adventure. And we've got the first page, updating the file. Basically, here's all the code that you require to do this. So here I've got some code, and I can update the image, and I can go through with everything and have a look at each of the parts of this. But I'm going to write this for you. And also, there is the live code, and if you click on that, it will take you straight through to the full game here. So you can have a look at the code with the code guide, or you can have a go at the full game by clicking on that and having a go yourself. So even on a phone, that may work. I've not used Trinket on a phone in a long time, actually, to see what that looks like. But I'm going to go from the beginning and take you through this. So as we said last week, we're going to need a few different things. We need an index page for HTML, which is the first page that you land on, as standard known as index. Then we can call things whatever we want. We are going to want to add some interactivity with this. So usually we would put script.js, which is the JavaScript. That's, for me, what I would usually do. But I just want to show you that different people have different styles. And quite often when I see some American stuff, some people use code.js as a different alternative. So for today, just so we can see different ways of working, I'm going to use code.js to really just say, I've got some code on this page. Then I'm also going to add style.css, which is cascading style sheets to make things look pretty. And we're going to see how these things work together to make the finished product. Okay, so let's start from the very, very basics, because I think the first time we do need to do this stuff, we need to do it correctly each time. So I'm going to just do the chevron. See if I can zoom in a little bit. There we go. Can zoom in a little bit more. We're going to do the chevron, which is the tag that we talk about, and we do HTML, and then we close the tag, and Trinket should, well, sometimes it does. Oh, there we go. You can see that this was a very good point here. I did my tag and it didn't automatically close. And the reason for that is I'm in my style sheet, which isn't HTML. So it doesn't recognize this. So you need to make sure that you're doing the HTML stuff in the HTML tag. And this time when we do the chevron, the kind of greater than or equal to signs, HTML, and close it, it's already in a different color and it will finish it off for me like that. And I can press enter. We also like to do stuff in the head, the heading tag here, which is naming where I can find some files. And after the header tag, we like to hit into the body of the main text. And that's the bare minimum of your HTML page. Now, if I was being really technical, there's some other stuff I could write, but you should really tell the internet with a single tag at the top here with an exclamation mark and doc type. Tell the internet that this doc type is HTML. It does help out. Go to details why that's required. Not necessary for using Trinket, but just good to get into the habit of. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to give this a title. And we do a title and we close the tag, and it means that when I write space story in here now, if I make this live on the internet rather than just using this kind of Trinket thing, it will come up like it does in the tabs here at the top. It will do the name here. So your HTML Trinket that's just seen here, maybe a bit small for the, especially for the phone there, go bananas, but it would be the title at the top of the tabs. That's why I'm not seeing anything in here. The next thing that I would need to do is that I would need to call the scripts, tell it where everything is. So when I say script, what I mean is where's the code? And the source of that, src, equals speech mark, and it closes speech mark, code.js in this case. I like to use script because that's what it is. It's a script, but some people prefer to use code, and you may see both in there. You need to tell it what type of code we're talking about here, and in speech marks we tell it that it's a text-based code / JavaScript. That's the code that we are using. Again, you can see all this information. I'm going to close that tag here, and there I've got my script closed as well. That tells me that I'm going to have some code in this part as well. And in the same kind of rationale for this, we're going to open up and also use a link which tells it that the reference, the href here, equals style, and this tells us .css where to find all the colorful things for my internet. And it's a relative style sheet here. Speech mark there, relative equals, and then style sheet. And there we go. So also need to tell it what type it is, and we equals. Now, this information is not something you need to commit to memory. You can see me side-eyeing over here, actually, because I always just want to make sure. I sometimes write SCR in there, make spelling mistakes. So this information is found in its entirety at the top of the code guide, where you can find these pieces of information at the top here. So we've done all that, but now we can get into the body of the text. And this is where we're going to use something slightly different. And we're going to start to design some HTML as well. So in this particular case, I'm going to come in and I'm going to call this divider, and it's going to be a class, and we'll explain what this is in a minute, called picture. Oh, picture, P. Now, what this means is anything now within these two tags, these two division tags here, is going to follow a certain style that I'm going to give it later. And inside this, I'm going to do a couple of things. I'm going to do H1, which is a heading tag, and I'm going to say Space Adventure. And this is the first time that we're going to see some text come up on the right-hand side. Excellent, okay? Then I'm going to do an image. Now I'm going to copy and paste this one because I found a lovely image. So I'll copy this straight from here. And I found an image, this one here, from a website called Pixabay. It's a free image source that we have. And as we go through all this, we can give it an alternative bit of text. So if we hover over this and we need some voice recognition program, maybe you can't see stuff very well, or just need that extra help, or you're completely blind and you need to have software read out the page to you, we have that ability using alternative text. Very useful for some people, so don't forget to add it. We've got a height and a width. And the reason I've got auto at the end here is I want it to say 200, but I don't want to stretch it. So for example, if I had written 200px here, then that would skew that, as we can see here. I don't want it to stretch. I want it to say whatever width it needs to be, but I don't want it to be taller than 200. So that's why I've got that there. The next part of this is, after that dividing class, which is the picture class, I'm then going to do another one, which is called divider, and we're going to call the class message. So it's equals and then message. And then that's going to say anything now between these two, give it a certain look, effectively. Now, I don't want to waste all of our time today writing all these bits or lines out. Everything from now on, well, actually, I'll do the next bit. I'll copy and paste some text in here using a paragraph text. So in here, I'm going to do a P tag, which is paragraph, and I'm going to paste my text. There it is. It's long line there. And in here, I've got that text here. All right. So we can scroll down, we can have a look at that information. The next divider tag that I want, in fact, yeah, I am done with that. So I keep doing these divisions one after another here. And the next one I'm going to do is a class of choice. Now this one means I'm going to have some buttons. I'm going to do my game. And I'm going to have some buttons in here so that I can choose one thing or another. So when I'm on this stage, then I'm going to have a button. Oh, just to get rid of that. I was typing on another page there. Just undo that. There we go. Perfect. So I'm going to come back in here and do button. And this class, which I'm going to write in it, so I can have each of the buttons looking different if I wanted to, is called my button. And we'll see why all these are being used. But then I'm going to now say on click. And we looked at this the other week. So this means when I click the button, I want it to go, or I want it to do something called moon. And it's a function that I'm going to have a look at. And this is going to be called escape. So I now close the tag, and anything in here, escape orbit, is like that. So now I have this escape orbit button. And I'm going to copy and just have another option, which is return to Earth, exactly the same way. And you can find this in the code guide at the bottom here. And I'm going to stick that in afterwards there. There we go. So I'm going to have two buttons, escape Earth or return to Earth. Now, it doesn't look very pretty. I've got no code as yet. I've just got HTML, and I've got no style at all. And this is what I want to do to change this. So what I have in my styles is anything in the body of the text. And because I've got these classes, I can use, because I've got main style. I don't use this. The classes will use a dot in the moment. I'm going to say background dash color, spelt the American way. And I put this colon in, and it's already automatically put in my semicolon at the end there. And I'm going to say light blue. Now that I have that, I've got my light blue. If I had got rid of that just with blue, I don't like that at all, which is why I've gone for light blue. Now, you can Google color codes. I mean, you don't have to spell it the American way, but you can do color codes here, and HTML will enable you to have individual color codes like these hexadecimal ones, or the actual names for colors themselves, like salmon and everything else. So some colors have actual names, and some have hexadecimal references. So if you want a specific color, you would need to put this kind of hash code. So for the red that I've just selected there, I would copy, and in here, I would put my hash, press paste into there, and that would be a specific red that you just saw there, the perfect red. But some colors have color names. So here are the color names. Indian red, da, da, da. So you can use either. It doesn't really matter. I usually use color codes, but for the purpose of instruction, it's easy just to point out that these are colors. So that's what we're having a go with now. So I have my background here. I can also change that heading text because that's the default. And I'm not sure I quite like it. So H1 all over this page now, using those curly brackets, is color and red. So again, we can see now that we're using American spellings again, and I can change anything I want. I can change the style of that font if I don't like the font that's by default. I can change the size of it, lots of different things. But now we get to the classes. So those kind of just writing the body and the H1s, those are things that in HTML are always the same. So body, paragraph text, H1 text, these are all things that are easy to rename. So when we're doing stuff like this, what we've got is the ability now to say, actually, I want to make my own style up, not one of these ones like H1, which is a permanent heading. We've got ones that we can make. So anything I made like message class or picture class here, I can now bespoke that. So that's the rationale. Because I gave it a name, it's going to have the dot picture to now say anything within this is going to follow these rules. And we're going to say text dash align is center. So I want everything to be centered, and center in the American way. So ER, and now you can see Space Adventure has now been centered because it was in that area. So even though I did picture, the text was in, I was in this code here. The text, Space Adventure here was in the picture class. That's why it's been centered. So that's useful to do. Maybe I want to do margins. I want to have some margins around margin dash left is auto. Margin right. And there are reasons why we want to have them automatically set. Again, we can go into some more detail about this. And I want some padding, and we're going to see that in a second. And I've gone for 20 pixels all around, 20 px and 20 px. You can see things moving now. 20 px, and it's left, up, down, left, right. We're saying, what do we want on the left? What do we want on the right? What do we want on the side? And it's just because I've zoomed in on here, it looks like it's a bit skew width, but that's put padding on the left, the side. So the text here isn't quite as bunched up. So if I do 0 here, that's moved that to the 0. So we can see that that one's on the left-hand side, 20. If we move this 20 down here, we can then see that the text moved up there. So that's the bottom one. And we can move this one, and it's moved it to the right. And we can change that one, and it's moved it up. So we've got all these paddings that we have just to make things look less squashed than they did previously to that. Then again, we can do other such stuff. Now, again, I'm not going to go too hard on this. I will do the button one, but for the other choices, I'm going to copy straight out of the code guide in here, which you can do as well if you're following on at home. And I'm going to paste those in, and then the message has got a box around it. But it's the button I really want to have a little play with, because that's slightly different to everything else. So again, it's a dot. I'm just going to zoom that, just bring that down the page a little. There you go, so we can see it. And here we've got the dot my button. And going to do the curly brackets again. And the things that we want to add into here for the my button, just seeing what exclamation, the rule is empty, that's all it's saying right now, is background dash color, spelled the American way again, blue this time to match the kind of color scheme that I have. I'm going to, as I do this, I'm going to have the buttons at the bottom, so that looks horrible right now. Then I want to do color is white, and that's giving me white text, which stands out a little bit better. Then I actually want to do something that's quite interesting. As I move my mouse over here, nothing's really suggesting to me that these are clickable. So what I'm going to have a look at is making something called a pointer. So I'm going to do cursor, and then I'm going to do pointer. And what that's going to do now is when I hover over, it's going to change it to a little hand. You might not see it, but that's now suggesting that we have a button. And then I'm just going to change the height and the widths here. Nothing too adventurous. You can get this code from the code guide. And I'm also going to tell it how big to make the buttons. There we go. So nice plain buttons, much nicer than they were before. So that's all good. We're ready to go with that. Everything looks like it's happy. My buttons have certain codes though attached to them which don't work at the moment. So if I click on something, nothing's happening right now. So I'm going to go to my index. I'm just going to paste in the text from previous to make sure everything's identical. And what I've got on this first page now, and my head's just in the way a little bit of the other button there, but I'll move it to the side so we can see it. There we go. Just it says return to Earth. You don't need to quite see everything there. But when I click the buttons here in the HTML code, we've got on click, do this thing called moon, and on click, do this thing called burn up. And if I go to the code, that's what I need to put in here. I need to tell it what to do. So in the code that I have for this, it's actually quite simple code that I require. It just means that when I press something, it's going to do that thing. So the simple stuff that I'm going to ask for is right at the bottom of what I need. So in the code guide here, we can go right to the bottom. It takes you through a little kind of revision about the stuff that you can do with JavaScript. But right at the bottom here, under the functions, we've got these things here showing us that we can go to different pages or external links. I'm not going to use that function Twitter one right now, but I am going to use these ones. And rather than you watch me type it, because of the limited time that we always have, it just says, make this function called moon. And in between the curly brackets, say alert, this is dangerous, then window location, it means call this file called moon.html. So when we come into here, I'm going to paste that code in, and that's telling me to go to something called moon. That's telling me to go to something called burner. I'm going to have a problem, but let's see it anyway. Escape to orbit. I'm going to click it. And it says, this is dangerous, hold tight. Then when I press OK, it's gone somewhere, but it doesn't know where to go. So let me just click on the index tab again. I click on the code, then click back to index. The reason why it couldn't do anything is it was taking me to a page called moon.html, at a page called burnup.html, and I didn't have those pages. So I have to create them. I have to create moon.html and then write some code in here. And then I need the other one called burnup.html, and I used camel case there. I've got a capital U, and now it will direct me to these pages. Now you can go straight to the code guide as I'm doing now, and I've got some code written in, which I basically just copy and pasted the HTML here for Space Adventure so that I had everything written the same, and then I just changed the text in here for the story, I changed the buttons, and I changed the image, but everything else kind of remained the same. So you just change a few key areas. So if you go to the code guide right to the top before I start talking about anything else, and I've got these pages under there, there's the moon one, virtually identical to what we had before, just with some different text in it. So you could spend some time having a look at that. That one was called Moon, and it's pulling the same styles from the CSS, and it's pulling the same code. That's why we have a style sheet, because all these styles that I have made now apply to every page that has that written as a link in the header. So it means if I want to change a web page, rather than changing each individual page, which would be a pain in the backside, what I actually want to do is change it once. So now if I change that from red to blue in the color, Space Adventure changes, but so does Moon. So that's made me be able to change everything as I go along with one page for the style, rather than having to write that into every other HTML, which you can do. It's just not good practice. So I've got my moon text there, and I've got my burn up. And so far, the create your own adventure is very, very simple in the fact that if I go to the burn up, I've only got two options at the moment. I've got start the game. So let's go back to it, index.html, and let's play this game. Let's bring the code to one side, and you're on your first mission to space, and suddenly all the emergency lights go off, and you suddenly lose connection to Earth. You have a split second to decide on your way out of the atmosphere to escape orbit or return to Earth. What do you do? Well, if I return to Earth, it says that sounds like the right thing to do in my alert, and I press OK, and I've burnt up. Okay, it was the wrong option in my create your own adventure. Your ship was damaged on launch, and you burnt up on re-entry. All of you died. Start again. Now, when I click the start again, nothing's happening, because let's check that code on the it was on the HTML there, on the moon, and when it went to the burnt up page, which was here, I've got a button that says start again, but it's a function that doesn't yet exist in my code. So each time I create a new option for a new page, I want to copy, pretty much the same as before, paste it in, but just change the name of this, which was start, and change whatever word you want to alert. Let's try again. And then ... I love my ... dots. And instead of going to burn up, go back to the index page. So at any point in the game, I can have a let's start again. So let's test that out. I'm on my Space Adventure page again. I'm going to go to return to Earth, which I know is the wrong decision. When I press OK, it's going to take me to you've burnt up. But now when I click start again, it should go, let's try again, and takes me back to the beginning. Excellent. So I've got this ability to replay the game now. If I had gone to escape orbit, this is dangerous, hold on tight, that's what the code says. Press OK, and the next stage of my game is you made it and see the moon. I've got two moons, I've got moon with 3 O's, so let's go and change that. There we go. Moon. You've got the made it to the moon in front of you. Now I've not changed the buttons here for escape orbit. So the next part of this would be to say, okay, let's come up with some new ideas. Try to land as one of the options that I have here, or return to Earth again. Now, if I try to return to Earth again, I'm going to keep doing that burn up. So it's just don't return to Earth, right? I've left that. But now I've got this try to land. I might call another page Moonland. And what I might do now is come up to the top of this page again. I'm going to copy all of this text. I'm going to create a brand new page called moonland.html. I'm going to paste this in, and now I need to change all the stuff. So leave the top of the stuff, still want the same style sheet, still want the same code page, moon landing. And then I can probably change a picture so I know that I've definitely moved it. I won't do that now. You made it to the moon in front of you, Need to change that text now to, as you try to land a, what should we say? You hear a noise. You hear a noise. I'm just going to leave it at that right now. And the next part of this could be, I'll leave return to Earth. No, because we know that still. I'm going to do new options now. I'm going to say abort the landing and see what it was, or just abort the landing, because it's going to be in a button. We don't want it too big, or ignore it as the option, right? And then I'm going to need to make new pages. So the whole point about these create your new adventures is I'm going to make a new page called abort. I'm going to make a new function called ignore. And now that I've got both of those, and this is where these games get really big, and I'm going to stop now, is I would go to code.js, copy these, do it twice, maybe 1, 2, and change that to abort, and change that to ignore. And then I start the whole thing again. I create those pages. So it's good to create a flowchart or something like that about where you want to go. So free flowchart online, something like that. There'll be different options. Lucidchart's not bad, but I think you need to sign in. Draw.io's a good one as well. Let's see if you still need to log in with Draw.io. And you could start to plan this out. Okay, so when we talk about thinking as a coder, again, it's asking me to log in. I'm going to save it to Google Drive because I've got a Google account. I'm going to authorize it. So if you have a personal Gmail, just use that and then just sign in. There we go, continue. Yeah, I do. I'm okay with that. I know this is a good product, so I like Draw.io. Very useful one. Create new diagram, blank, create. And there's other things you can use, mind mapping tools, anything else. Use the root. Yes, that's fine. Give it a second. And now I could start to plan out my whole journey. And the reason why I like Draw.io is if I just do some random blocks like this and do my different choices that I have here, I can start to plan out how this works. So I can call this one, double tap into it, start, or let's actually do this more easily, index. Then we had return. Well, actually we had burn up was one of the options. And then we had, well, that was the thing that happened. So those were the choices. So yeah, burn up was where we go to. And the other one was moon. Then we had another choice for the moon, which was attempt to land. And we had the ignore, things like this. So what we can do here is we can actually click and say, these are the ways I want us to go. So no, not with that one. I'm going to go from there again to there. And you can come up with these choices. Now, remember, when we had the burn up, we went all the way back to the start again. And you can move these around. And then on the moon landing, so let's go back and remind ourselves what we had. So on the moon landing, the choices that we had was try to land or return to Earth. And if we return to Earth, again, we went to the burn up. There we go. But if we tried to land, we went to that page. And then we had the ignore and we had the abort. Now, on the abort, what I might end up doing here is actually then on the abort one, I might have that actually taking me back to the start again. So I can have all of these different ways of mapping out my choices. And that's why I like this. And the reason why I like this one more than any of the others is you can move them around and the lines stay with them. So you can map out all of the options and all the levels of difficulty. Now, the last thing I'm going to talk about here today is this was fine when we used to do things old school, and you could then sell, if this was some great game, it's very not great game at the moment, but if this was a great game and people were playing it all over the world, you could then sell the options. This is the right choice all the way through it. You could be making notes. If this was some mega game that had hundreds of choices, that was a maze like we used to have in the books when I was younger, turn to page 41, do all these kind of things. There was always the same options. But what made the books interesting is you could roll the dice. And if one thing happened, you would go one direction or the other. But people still used to cheat their way through. But what you can do here is in your code, for example, rather than just take you straight there, we could end up doing some code here to make us actually say, do you know what? I'm going to make this a bit of a random choice. And we know how to do this. So right at the end, when we had the burn up, because we went straight there, I'm going to say, even when we go to the moon, there's going to be some choice here. I'm going to say var, or the variable, lucky. Just calling it whatever. Am I lucky? Okay, spell it right would be great. So am I lucky? And to do that, I'm going to use math.random, which I don't have to call as a library because I'm in JavaScript, so the internet knows what I'm talking about. Now, when we used to do this random number here like this, we would say it's between 0 and 1. So I'm not going to bother doing all the other stuff like trying to make it like a dice call. I'm just going to give this a 50-50 chance of also dying. So I'm going to say if the lucky that we've just created here is less than 0.5, so half a chance here, then I'm going to do this curly bracket and I'm going to say, actually, if you're unlucky, which this is going to be, I'm going to say you're going to burn up whatever. Okay, so even if you didn't choose that way of doing it, I'm going to burn up. Then after that here, I'm going to say else. In other words, it's not less than 0.5, it's greater than it. Then I'm going to copy and paste this into there. Excellent. And now we've got the moon option. So right now I've added in an unknown quantity. I wasn't telling you to roll a dice here or anything like this. But if we go back to the Space Adventure game now, and I go escape orbit to go to the moon, there's going to be a 50-50 chance of me doing that. If I click return to Earth, I'm going to die, whatever. Burn up. There we go. Doesn't matter. Let's start again. But if I then go to now try to escape the Earth or escape orbit, let's see how lucky I am. Press escape orbit. This is dangerous. Hold on tight. And it says I've got to the moon. Fantastic. Now, if I'd have gone back, and if I go back to the index page again, let's try this again. Escape orbit. Okay. What's going to happen? I burnt up. There you go. 50-50. So this adds it again. I'm like, oh no. Now you might replay this game and say, well, actually, this is rubbish game. If that was the first time you played it, returning to Earth makes you burn up, and escaping orbit makes you burn up. Well, that's not the case. If I do that now again, I burnt up this time again. People will get frustrated. This is the worst game of the world. There's no option. You burn up both ways. But actually, the more you play this game, the more you realize, again, I've burnt up again, that every time you play this, you will get a slightly different outcome depending on the choices that you have. There, I've gone to the moon now. So this makes this an almost impossible game to finish, maybe. A roguelike, if you will, like we talked about before with things like Dead Cells and games like Hades or Hades 2, which I still haven't bought. I think we discussed that last time. I will do. Maybe the half term, I'll buy that. But here now we have a game. We can make as many pages as we want in here. We can add random elements. I mean, if you get really naughty, you could do 0.9. In other words, there's a 90% chance you're going to burn up. But I wouldn't be that harsh. I'd maybe just put a 0.2 in there, saying there's only a small chance you burn up to make people play the game a bit more. So you start playing around what really annoys people or doesn't annoy people. So we're now seeing that even with something like Trinket, we can make these games. I might look to see how we might publish that, but I'm hoping to do an unboxing of the Arduino Ulvik. Oh, I'm getting used to the spelling of this one. I think it's Ulvik like that. Yeah. Hopefully going to do a unboxing of this next week. It should be coming in the post the next couple of days for me. Just talking about the robotics of this and how that works, similarly to how I did with this. Maybe I'll return to the Create Your Own Adventure and saying, well, okay, it's great to do it on Trinket, but can I make my own game and my own web address and my own URL to do something online? The answer is yes. There's ways of doing that. I can show you how to do it, but Trinket allows you to play really nicely. And don't forget that when you zoom out of Trinket, you can see more things, as well as doing this full screen as well, full screen options and stuff like that. So we can come in here, we can embed them, we can download them, lots of things that we can do here to have a little bit of a play around. So do that. You've got the code guide as well to have a look if you want to take that further. And also, if you just want to look at the live code and play around with it and tweak rather than write it yourself, because you just like to learn that way, you can do it. So the Python game, it's on there on the Thinking as a Coder page, which, as always, is on digital.edu.je. And we can play around with those. So hopefully you enjoyed today's session. Unboxing next week, just because I super want to do an unboxing. It's probably going to kill me, actually, to keep it all boxed up until then. Let's see if I do. You may see that I've sneakily done it. I try my best to do that. So, yeah, like I said, I will do the session again next week, and enjoy the summer holidays. If I see you, I see you. If I don't, I don't. That's it for now. So thank you for watching as always. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. Write some comments if anything you want to see as well. The same usual stuff. So thank you again. Bye-bye for now.